Episode 5 and 6 had a really profound effect on me.
I thought they were awesome.
Not just as a reader, but like also as a storyteller. Yeah, so the show moved in a direction I did not expect. I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but I was very much primed for tragedy. Did you guys feel like you were being primed for tragedy, like in season 1? Like, were you expecting?
I thought we were being primed for revolutionary war.
I would say yes.
Like, you were expecting that we were going to get to some point where, you know, the sisters are fighting against each other and Vi has to kill Jinx or something like that. Like, that was where
I did. Yes. I thought that they were going to be on opposing sides of a civil war, in essence, and that this was going to be very action-packed warfare, anarcho revolution against a collapsing civilization, high civilization. And we're not there, but what we're getting now doesn't matter. It's so good.
Right. And so when there was this moment when I realized this show is not actually going in that direction, this show is going in the direction of redemption, because I was so expecting it to be tragedy that when I realized this show is moving it was an emotional gut punch. Like, I was not, it hit me out of nowhere. Like, if it was a kind of story where I was like, oh, I'm expecting it to have a good ending, you know, but I wasn't. And yeah, I mean, that was really powerful. Like, yeah, those two sisters coming together again, I was not expecting that. I thought we were going to see them opposed for a while, and I thought it was a really clever way to bring them back together. Because, like I said before, like, there was a point where it was kind of like I was very clearly morally more on Vi's side, but here maybe not necessarily morally, but like when they come back together, it's like these characters are equally a mess for completely different reasons. But they're like, these are two characters that are a mess, and
they have there's a great line that underscores that. Mm-hmm. Vi goes, she's like, they're talking about Vander, and she's like, why? So you could tell Vander would be disgusted with you because he would just see what a psycho his daughter's become, and she goes, which one?
Exactly. That's exactly a really good point. That whole argument between them was such gold. Like, that whole like big sister, young sister dynamic was completely gone in that moment, and they were two adults. You know, like they were very much two people that are very much established in who they are, for better and for worse. They both were very, you know, equal in terms of their power and in terms of their fucked upness, you know.
Keith, I got a still shot if you want it.
Okay.
And they'd also, you know, like Jinx had yes, this part was fantastic. It very much had the feeling of, you know, two estranged family members coming back and having an argument. It felt very raw and authentic. And you know, part of them becoming equals is because Jinx was kind of going up, like she's starting to find her humanity again, and Vi has gone down. You know, she's gone down a bit of a dark path in this sort of hopelessness and violence and rage. And she's also, I think, started to lose herself in terms of her role as a protector. And this scene emphasizes that too, because there's that moment again. It's like we're thinking about like who Vi is, like in her best form. She's using violence, you know, to protect vulnerable people. When she's in her worst form, she ends up hurting vulnerable people. She ends up hurting the very people she's supposed to protect. Like she hurt Powder.
Yeah, she kind of backfires.
And that happens in the scene with Isha. And that's a very, like, that moment is just so thematically powerful, because we're seeing, like, I think that's a moment of self-awareness for Vi as well. It's like, oh, this is what happens. This is what happens when, you know, she's disconnected from her own soul, I would say.
Or when she, you know, she's becoming, her desire to protect just shifts to pure violence. Mm-hmm. You know, she loses control of it, and then someone innocent gets hurt, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And so Isha is kind of helping them both find themselves a little bit here. And then, yeah, I just loved how there's these shifts that start to happen, right? We see Vi protecting Jinx in this episode at one point. And in this scene, this sequence, she protects her from Vander, you know, and that's why she goes to go fight him. And then, of course, you know, when those three joined in a hug, that was when I was sobbing. I was like, oh my God, I did not think that they were going to repair their relationship, that was the direction this show was going to. Yeah, that was like peak Arcane storytelling right there. Yeah. Oh, you're muted, Doug. You muted yourself somehow.
Oh, you are muted, Doug.
Oh, so that I would shut up and not interrupt him. This is the importance of having your lead characters forward engaged in a story one way or the other. we care about those people. We invested all of season 1 in those people, and we're willing to follow them even when they go into a downward spiral. We're willing to go watch that happen and be like, oh, don't do that. Or when, a bright moment occurs in this dark world, you're like, oh man, this is what a payoff that is. I felt a lot of emotions watching episodes 5 and 6, which were completely unexpected because I was not on board with the show to the same extent. It was okay, but it had not hit any level that was engaging me to the same extent. And then suddenly, while I was kind of like this, suddenly I'm like, oh my God, like I'm into this show. And I was getting teary-eyed when some of these bigger moments happened. I thought it was very important. But to me, it underscores why the earlier episodes weren't as effective. And it also is reminding me as a writer to get moving on the main issue, that don't spend too much time in setup. I'm having some of the same problems, by the way. It's made me look at my story and be like, yeah, I'm gonna have to take out these chapters and get moving, man. That this is, people want to see the lead characters forward engaged, whatever that looks like. They don't want to see them on the bench. So we don't, and they're not on the bench in episode 5. And their hearts are on their sleeves. They've got this new character, Isha, who Jinx, of all people, decided to be a protective person toward. They found out that Vander's still alive, and Vi doesn't even believe her, right? Brianna, she's like, you're fantasizing.
She thinks it's a trick. Yeah, like it's because their first meeting is very interesting too, because it's like she just sees Jinx, she doesn't see at all that powder.
Except for one thing, the tear. They stop fighting because they're fighting each other when they first meet each other. Yeah. Jinx just kind of appears, and then Vi's kind of got her up against the wall, but Jinx, a tear comes down, and that's enough to make Vi consider that she might be sincere if she's willing to cry over this. Right? Jinx isn't a crier, right? I mean,
I hate
enough to stop Vi in her tracks.
I hate to keep doing this. You guys, I'm going to hand it over to you in a second and go into all sorts of depth in episode 5. But I just want to say very briefly some of my thoughts in episode 6 and like kind of a takeaway that I had for both.
All right, go for it.
So for episode 6, we get our shift with Kate and Vi again, which of course, I knew that was coming. That wasn't a surprise. But I did like how they handled that. Where, when they meet each other and they're like, what are you doing here? And Vi says, I'm trying to save my dad. And that was an instant moment of connection, right? Because Kate has just lost a parent. So she understands emotionally, that was a moment where we didn't have to say a lot. Like we very quickly understand what's happening with those characters then. And then the moment when Jinx defends Caitlyn, now that was an interesting shift. I gasped at that moment. I was like, oh, and that was when I was realizing, I was like, oh, maybe these characters are all going to be on the same side. That was literally the last thing I expected out of this show. It was that we were, and I think that's where we're going, that we're going to have the lead characters that we're all invested with all being for Zahn, which is really, really exciting. And we see, the shifting. I always note the moments of shifting characters because just as a storyteller, things that I'm very interested in. Jinx and Vi have a moment of saying, maybe we could stay here. And she holds Jinx back from the explosion. So it's just these little steps of, coming back together. I would love to say some stuff about the Arcane and the religion stuff, but I'm gonna not. I'm gonna leave that to you guys. But I'll say
if you've got something to say about that, we can come back another night. We don't have to Tuesday. We can come back another night. I'm okay with that.
I'll just say very, very simply, because that's really important to the theme here, which is we're shifting into healing. Like there's that Doug, you've mentioned before to me, the I'm talking too fast.
Sacred Grove
archetype, which was definitely at play here. This was a place of healing, which is what these characters need, right? They all need some goddamn healing. And that thing that we got, the I guess monologue, I suppose, from what's his name? Victor, about motions of humanity being two sides of the same coin, love and hatred. And we cut to Vi when he says love and hatred, we cut to her fighting, which was like, yes, it's exactly right. We're talking about the two sides of Vi, right? When she, because there's so much of there's a lot of duality that's going on in the story, which could be.
Well, the quote, and it ends episode 6. That which inspires us to our greatest good is also the cause of our greatest evil.
Mm-hmm.
Hell of a statement.
I know.
That's a great line.
Yeah. Yeah. So having that surprise shift towards redemption and healing and all that had a very profound effect on me creatively. Just making a quick side note. You guys will both understand which story I'm referring to, but I had a passion project story that I'm working on for some years that I've been planning to be a tragedy. And I'm starting to change my mind about that, about how the story needs to end based on the way this affected me, because it was like, it's hard to put this into words exactly. I realized like unexpected redemption is so powerful. Expected redemption is just kind of like, oh yeah, we kind of expected to go. But when you're like going into the depths of like the darkness of the human soul, and you're primed to expect a heartbreak, things get as dark as they possibly can. And then, then what does that say? What are you saying about humanity as a storyteller if you go to those depths and then you say, and yet we can still rise above that? Like that had such an impact on me, and it has made me fundamentally think differently about how I want to approach a certain story, which you two are both familiar. Yes, that's
awesome. And it's interesting because episodes 5 and 6 confronted me with my writing and made me rethink I think I mentioned at least, how I wanted to keep the conflict and lead characters more engaged. Mm-hmm. That's less profound than what you're talking about, though. I really like what you're saying, and it just goes to show that, it doesn't matter where you are on the writing spectrum, mm-hmm. you can always learn from great writing. And I do think that episodes 5 and 6 here gave us some great writing, and it was great. It was great to watch, mm-hmm. and it was great to feel like Arcane's got more for us, that they're not done with us yet. That they're going to be able to hit peak levels again. And now I can't wait for Act 3. I am ready to go for next week.
Yeah.